The subject of anamorphic filming is always fascinating, so I took the chance to talk to Tito about it.
This is a Cinity Gear News video.
Hi, I'm Johnny from Cinity, and today I'm here with Tito. Tito, how are you?
Hey Johnny, I'm good. Everything's good.
As always, it's very nice to talk to you, and for me personally, you're one of those, let's call it, anamorphic gurus. I mean, somehow you're always associated and connected to anamorphic. What happened?
I don't know, I think I just went too deep into this. I started out trying to tell people that shooting anamorphic is not that big of a deal, that it's doable even if you don't have a ton of money. And I just kind of kept pushing the boundaries of what's doable. It's like, oh, you can achieve the look without the lenses just by using oval inserts, or here's reviews of every single adapter that I can get my hands on, just to get information out there for people to realize that anamorphics do not mean Cook or Arri or $30,000, $40,000 lenses. Like, you can do it with 1,000 or less.
Let me start and talk about you as a filmmaker. Just with people will get to know you a little better. Who are you?
All right, I'm Chito, I'm from Brazil. I moved to Canada in 2014 because I graduated from university in film production in Brazil. I specialized in cinematography and editing. But what I really wanted was actually to do visual effects. So I took off from Brazil and I came here to Vancouver, did film school. It was not really what I wanted for visual effects. The market was not what I hoped for. So I went to film school again and further specialized in cinematography and this time directing. And that's where I started to connect with the people here and make films more in the short form, more sci-fi, always things that I can make it look like it's a bigger budget. Like, what drives me in making films is making really nice looking images.
So let's talk a little bit about anamorphic, because there is a magic when you shoot anamorphic. And I guess the greater the squeeze, maybe the greater the magic. You can either, I hope you agree with me, but when was the point that actually you decided to look and look into anamorphic in opposed to spherical lenses?
I decided to start looking into anamorphics in the summer of 2012. I was right in the middle of my film degree back in Brazil, and everybody was shooting on the same stuff. It was like the 7D was the most affordable DSLR at the time, and everybody had a 7D. And also everybody used Canon L lenses. So it was the 7200, the 2470, and that 50 1.4. It's cool, but every film looks the same. What can I do about it? So I started looking into anamorphics, and what they did, it was very, very confusing. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna prove that I can, here in Brazil, with very little money in a public school, make anamorphic films that look way better than the budget that I'm putting into it.
And did you achieve to do what you really wanted? Let's call it budget anamorphic look.
Yeah, fair question. I managed to make the film. It was on a random class. It was like an elective class. And the students were on strike because there was a whole political thing going on. It was a very unstable year in terms of politics in Brazil in 2013. So the show that I made is if that situation escalated for the worse and people got locked in a place. And I wanted to test two things. I wanted to test low light, and I had a set of lenses for that. It was just vintage primes, Russian primes, and an anamorphic adapter. And I also had a cine anamorphic that I managed to find for cheap. And I made not only the film, I also made like 100-page document of the process of experimenting and studying and researching, and my references for the story, for the visuals. And until now, my project is still used as a reference of what students can do for a mix of theory and practical projects, because in our school, you would either direct a film or write a thesis, and I kind of did both.
Let's say that there are two ways to achieve anamorphic look. One is to use a real anamorphic lens, and we will touch this in a second. And another way is to do like a fake anamorphic look. Anything that you favor more than the other?
Yeah, actually, anamorphaking is something that I started pushing more and more in the last year or so, last 2 years almost, because it's so much cheaper. Like, one of the biggest barriers with anamorphic is people say, I want a $500 lens that will do everything for me. And I tell them, you can't. But with $500, you can build an entire set of fake anamorphics that are spherical lenses that kind of look like anamorphic. And unless you tell people they're not anamorphic, no one is gonna know. And I have my own set of modified anamorphics. And that's a set that I always use when I don't have time on set. Is like, oh, this is gonna be a rush, but we also want a unique look. And I'm like, cool, you're setting this up. Or if I'm like traveling or if I'm going somewhere that I don't want to carry a ton of gear, I just want 2 lenses, small lenses, lightweight, then I take my anamorphics, and that still makes it look like I was shooting scope all the time. So when you anamorphic a lens, you're still shooting spherical. Like, the lens is doing the same thing. What you're getting is the anamorphic look. So your out of focus areas become ovals. You can get some streak flares, and you can add some tint and some softness, low contrast filters to the picture, all done in camera. But you're not getting a squeezed picture. You're still cropping the top and the bottom. You're using your camera to help you figure out the framing for CinemaScope or 2.39 to 1 crop, and you're shooting 16:9. It's great for post-production too.
I have an assumption why we don't see more on the budget anamorphic lenses. Do you have an assumption why more companies not doing this?
At NAB in 2019, I went to all of the stands that made anamorphic lenses. And I was like, so what's the deal? What are you doing? What do you do? And it was in that round of research that I learned that by making strong anamorphics, like 1.8 or 2 times, you have very, very small tolerances when polishing the glass. So you have to order more glass than you'll end up using because you lose a lot. That ups the price considerably because you have to factor in losses. And what also happens is these lenses are put together by one company, but the glass is coming from multiple different places. So there is one company right now who's offering really affordable anamorphics, and they have a business model that's very different from everyone else too. The way they're doing this different approach to making the lenses is they control all of the steps. Like, they're building the factory that produces the sphericals and the cylinders and assembles all of the glass and the mechanics together all in one place. And this allows them to have less losses and keep the prices down. So that's a big challenge.
Absolutely. You also are working with those $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 anamorphics. Mm-hmm. Do you see any big difference between the look or the glass?
I don't see a huge difference in the look itself. And if you're shooting on your own, then I would say go for the cheapest lens. But if you're on a production environment and you have assistants, like camera assistants, first and second, you have multiple cameras, you have to match, you have PL mounts, and you have to adjust your flange distance and all of those things that are crucial to motion pictures and higher production quality, then I see a difference because let's say if I'm swapping lenses from 35 to a 50 on a budget anamorphic or an adapter setup, this is going to take me a little bit. I have to take out the lens, put the other one, adjust the positioning of the follow focus motors, recalibrate everything, readjust, reset. Sometimes the filter sizes change, the size of the lens changes, I have to move the matte box. It's a bunch more steps involved in making this swap. While if you're dealing with higher tier or like more expensive anamorphics, all of those little things have been built into the lenses. So all the aperture rings are in the exact same place for all of the set. The focus rings are all the same. The range is also the same. The minimum focus is the same. And it's just much easier to work with. You save a ton of time. And in the end of the day, with a big crew, time is money. So that's the biggest difference that I see from shooting recently and comparing those two approaches.
When it comes to Super 35 or full frame anamorphic lenses, any specific preferences that you have?
Choosing between Super 35 and full frame is a struggle that I've been dealing with for almost the last 2 years. I've always tested stuff for the channel in full frame because I want to push the limits of the glass. It's like, oh, this is how hard it can be. This is how bad it can look. But if you're in Super 35, it's much easier. And historically speaking, Super 35 is motion picture, like films are Super 35. So I've been making an effort in shooting more Super 35 instead of full frame. It's also much more achievable in terms of price. It's cheaper and the gear is overall much lighter. So you're gonna be not dead at the end of the day from carrying a ton of gear around. You're just gonna carry half a ton of gear.
You know what will be? By the time that we all move to full frame, we're going to have proper Super 35 anamorphic lenses. But no, this is just a kind of a bad joke. You're shooting now on mirrorless cameras or proper cameras?
In the beginning, I was shooting on Canon cameras. So I had a 5D and I exchanged that for a mirrorless camera. The A7S II was my first mirrorless camera and I was like, wow, this is mind-blowing. But Sony never supported anamorphics. So I eventually ended up getting a GH5, which is also mirrorless. And now I have a GH5, an S5, and an S1H. So I'm really a Panasonic kind of guy now. And at the same time, I'm able to intercut this footage with footage from Red or from Alexa without much of a problem in terms of color correction. The only thing that makes a big difference for me when comparing those two is flange distance, which is a critical thing when dealing with anamorphics. And that's something that's much easier to handle on production cameras like Red or Alexa, just because of how they're made. Like they take those things into account. It's a little bit like the cine lenses versus consumer anamorphics. Like the difference is in usability. It's what speeds things up.
If somebody just want to jump on the anamorphic wagon, what will be the golden advice that you can give somebody?
Okay, golden advice would be do your research, do your homework, figure out if this is really what you want, and then set a budget for it. Don't be like, I want this to be the cheapest possible way, because you're gonna be unhappy. And take into account your style of shooting. It's like, how do you go about when you're on set? Do you run and gun? I always run and gun. I can't put things on a tripod, it kills me. So your way of shooting is going to greatly influence which lenses are gonna work for you.
In that regards, if you are doing handheld stuff, of course, the IBIS is your and our best friend.
Oh yeah.
I wonder how you deal with focus, if it's obviously mostly, or actually all of it is manual focus. Is it an obstacle for you or it's fine?
It's fine. I've given up on shooting wide open all of the time unless I absolutely have to. So being able to stop it down a bit helps with focus. Most of the time I'm handheld, but I'm not running around and pointing in a million directions. It's just to give it an organic feel. It's the documentary school of shooting from Brazil. Many times I also have an AC, so I'm just worried about framing and I got somebody else who's worried about keeping things sharp, which makes a big difference in taking things off your mind as a cinematographer.
Tito, anything before we say thank you and goodbye? Anything regarding anamorphic or even your personal, you said you're writing a lot and you actually sharing the information on your YouTube channel. Anything else that you would like to say? Very happy to hear.
I've been working on the channel for the longest time. It's taken a while and it's always been about gear, gear, gear. This is the lens, this is that lens. And I recently made the jump into more concept content. So it's like, here's the history of anamorphics, here how the lenses actually work. and those videos are gonna start coming out soon. So if you want to check stuff about anamorphics and understand how they work and why they are such a big deal, check the channel.
Tito, thank you very much for sharing the information. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And guys, thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.